Hi, I'm Megan McKeefrey, and I'm here with Representative Tom Nelson. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Could you tell me a little bit about the area that you cover, your district, and
Sure.
what you do?
Yes, I represent parts of the Green Bay Fox Valley area. The Fox Valley area, also known as the Paper Valley. And I was first elected in 2004. In 2008, I was reelected and elected majority leader by my peers. And it's been a good experience. It's good being able to be elected by the community where I grew up and have the chance to represent the community that I live in and their interests in Madison.
Great. With the loss of manufacturing jobs in your area and the Fox Cities being such really big on the paper industry, what kind of effects have you seen with the massive job loss, layoffs, and downtime in these mills?
Well, I think the effects have been devastating. If you go back 20, 25 years ago, the paper industry was the industry in the Fox Valley in particular. And Green Bay has also been reliant on manufacturing, specifically paper. And, you know, when I grew up, I remember, the block I grew up on, where it seemed like 80% of the households had a dad or a mom who worked at a paper mill, and that was just common. And of course, that's changed dramatically in the last 25 years. And I also think in the last 5 or 10 years, that trend moving away from the paper industry has continued. And I think the tipping point that really brought home a lot of awareness of this issue was the closing of the Kimberly New Page Mill in the summer of 2008. And I think that went a long way in galvanizing the public's attention and the public's interest in recognizing this reality that paper mills and good-paying manufacturing jobs have been on the decline, not just in the last couple of years, but in the last 10 to 15 years, and that we need to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people in the community, they recognize you when we talk about the Kimberly Mill closing. You were so active in that and standing up for the average worker in the community. With the paper case that's going on right now, what kind of things have you been doing?
Well, what I've been doing is continuing my work trying to organize my fellow colleagues, not just in the Fox Valley, Green Bay area, but around the state, to sign on to letters that have been going to the International Trade Commission, that have been going to the U.S. Department of Commerce, making sure that our voices are heard, and that we're doing everything we can to call attention to this problem. And I think what's also important, too, is not just to recognize the one case that's before the ITC, but to recognize that this has been yet another case, and that there is, in fact, a pattern when it comes to the paper dumping cases that have continued in the last 10 years. And it has not been until recently that thanks to President Obama and his administration, that we finally have a worker-friendly administration that recognizes that this is a problem, that there's a pattern, that our government needs to stand up for the people that elected our leaders and make sure that we hold other countries accountable to trade practices. This is not an isolated incident. This is something that's been going on for some time, and if we don't stand up and do something, if we don't elect leaders that will recognize this problem, stand up for working families, and rule accordingly on these cases, that these problems will persist.
What kind of burden does this put on the services that are offered in the community, the businesses and the local, services?
Well, the paper industry has been a driver industry. Because of paper, it is because of the strength of the paper industry that other jobs have sprouted up around these jobs, around these manufacturing jobs. I believe it was, we had estimated that for every one paper mill job was lost, 3 to 4 other jobs in supporting industries would also be lost too. Because paper brings dollars in from outside the state, outside the country, into this community. And so without those extra dollars flowing through our communities, we will have a very difficult time trying to sustain small businesses. And so it's not surprising that there have been small businesses that have closed up. There have been many more small businesses that have been affected by the closing of either New Page or either the downsizing of other mills.
Mm-hmm. What have you noticed in your area as happening to the tax base with the loss of jobs and the average citizen in the town? How are they being affected?
Well, I think that the average taxpayer has felt the impact of the loss of these paper jobs. Because of the loss of these paper jobs, we have seen the steady erosion of the tax base, whether it's the loss of the tax base from the paper mill itself, or whether it has been the loss of a tax base because people have lost their jobs, they've not been able to pay their mortgages and have to leave. So it's because of those reasons that I think those reasons combined has had a punitive effect on other taxpayers, because the tax base has eroded, and as a result, because the tax base is not what it once was, that we are relying more and more on other families and other businesses to pay what otherwise was paid for by the paper industry and by those paper paper jobs.
Yep. What do you think needs to happen in the situation we're facing right now?
What we need to do is we need to reverse the unfair trade practices that have been persistent, not just in the last couple of years, but in the last 10 or 15 years. If you look at the if you look at the market share that domestic paper producers, especially free sheet coated producers, had 10 years ago versus their counterparts in China and Indonesia, we see a dramatic decrease in that market share. And part of the reason why we have lost our footing is because paper companies in other countries have broken trade laws and have illegally undersold their product here in this country and elsewhere. And so it has created this unfair. There has not been a level playing field. I mean, I firmly believe that if there was in fact trade laws that were enforced, that we did in fact have a level playing field for Wisconsin workers, for American workers to compete, we would not have lost market share the way that we have the last 10 years. And it's unfortunate we can't turn back the clock and go back 10 years ago to make sure that those laws were enforced. I mean, we are suffering the repercussions of having a government that has allowed these trade practices to persist. So we need to stop it right now. We need to reverse those trade practices, enforce the trade laws we have to stop the bleeding of manufacturing jobs, not just in Wisconsin, but around this country.
Mm-hmm. If you had the power to speak to those that are going to make the decision in this case, Tom, what would you ask them?
I would ask them to do the right thing. I think it's clear, given the evidence out there, that these countries have broken these trade laws. They must be held accountable, and we have to do everything we can right now to try to do the best we can to repair the damage that's already done. I know that regardless of what decision comes down, we're not going to be able to do what should have been done 10 years ago. But I think that we can start right now and try to stop the bleeding of the loss of these manufacturing jobs.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for your time, Tom.
You're welcome.